All right, section 12. Why was Genghis Khan such an effective leader? How was he able to overcome the old problem with maintaining unity? Why was his empire divided? So, first of all, we have to emphasize that he did what a lot of people were good at doing among the Mongols. He was a charismatic leader. He got people to follow him. He was competent. He knew what he was doing. He was able to use mounted horsemen effectively. And so people took him seriously. So he was able to gain a following. Right now, here's the key thing, remember, though. One thing about the Mongols and other nomadic tribes was they could form a confederacy for a time, right? The different tribes would follow an effective leader, but eventually the confederacy would break apart as the various tribes said, you know what, we don't like this leader anymore, or, he lost a battle, let's just leave and do our own thing, or whatever, right? So the problem was that the tribes would come together and then would just break apart. Now, what was key then about Genghis Khan was that he started giving people merit-based promotion. So if you were a commander in his army and you did well, he would promote you based on that. Now you may say, well, what's the big deal about that? I mean, doesn't that make sense? Well, in the old system, you didn't really promote people based on what how well they did. You promoted them based on what tribe they were a part of. So if they were a powerful tribe, you gave them more power. And of course, ultimately, if the tribes get too powerful, they're just going to break off and do their own thing. So what happened was, because he promoted people based on promotion, he gave power to people who weren't necessarily all that powerful themselves. And that made them dependent on him, right? I promote this guy's going to be loyal to me. When I promote someone because their tribe is powerful, that just makes them more powerful, and they don't really feel anything to me. They know they got promoted because of their tribe, not because of me. But when I promote competent people to be in charge, and then they make they're going to be loyal to me, and they're going to do a good job. So what happened was, he's getting people to be more loyal to him than to the tribes by promoting people based on how good of a job they're doing rather than what tribe they're a part of. So the question isn't, oh, I need to make my tribal leaders happy. The question is, how do I make Genghis Khan happy? In addition, he will form new organizations. He will break up the old tribes and put people into new units to maintain unity, right? So he'll break up the tribes into different armies. So that way, he may put half of one tribe in one army, half of it in another army, mixed in with some other tribes, and that makes the tribal unity kind of dissolve, and people are only left for him to be in charge. So what happens, though, eventually, he is so successful that his empire does split, not because the tribes disintegrate, but it's simply too big for any one person to rule. So he's a very successful conqueror. Now, what sort of government did the Gupta Empire have? How did it treat Buddhism? The Gupta Empire was a Hindu government, but it was tolerant towards Buddhism. So that part was pretty simple. Number 7, what was the connection between religion, astronomy, and math? What developments did Aryabhata make? And let's see. Yeah. So what happened was, Aryabhata was an astronomer. And the reason he was an astronomer, though, was you wanted to study the stars to worship the gods, right? The Indians believed that the gods were like in heaven, and that the different gods were in different parts of heaven at different times. So you need to keep track of where they were, because that would determine how you worship them and on what days you worship them, right? You wanted to make sure you worship them in the right time, in the right way. So you needed to understand astronomy. So to do that, you had to understand math. You can't do astronomy without math. And this will lead Aryabhata to make a lot of neat developments, right? He's the guy that develops what we call Arabic numerals. He figures out pi, for example. He figures out the decimal system. And then he uses this math to figure out things like, that the Earth rotates on its axis, whereas before people thought that the sun and everything went around the Earth. He's like, no, the Earth goes around, and then we also spin on an axis. So a pretty smart guy. What is the story of the Ramayana? Why is it important? So remember, the story of the Ramayana, the great warrior Rama, his wife is kidnapped by the demon king, and then the faithful monkey Hanuman helps him go get his wife back, and they defeat the demon king, and he rescues Sita. Now, what happened is, this was an old story, but what happened was, the Guptas during this time were being attacked by the Xiongnu, the Huns, they were also called. And what the Guptas claim to have found the city of Rama. And what this means then is, they see this as symbolic. Just as the great warrior Rama was attacked unjustly and his wife kidnapped by the demon king, so are we also being unjustly attacked by these demonic Xiongnu. We're going to, unite and defeat the Xiongnu and, restore our country, which is kind of symbolizes, which Sita symbolizes. right? So this allows them to unite themselves to fight against their invader, right? They say, oh, look, we're like Rama, who's being treated unjustly, but we're going to win in the end like Rama did. I wish I could say the Guptas had a monkey army to help them, but alas, they did not. So, and this is still important today, right? There are still celebrations of the Ramayana. It's still a popular story in India today. And one problem, though, is at times that faith in Rama has led to attack on Muslims, where some Indians have said, oh, those Muslims are like the foreign invaders. They're like the demon king. We should get rid of them. And that's kind of an unfortunate thing. Now, the Gupta were victorious against the Xiongnu, but they were weakened and fell, and this will lead to the continued fragmentation of India. They're not going to get another empire for a while that conquers everything. How did Islam expand into India? Why did some Indians embrace Islam? Why did others reject it? So there's going to be Islamic military expansion into northwest India. So, we talked about how Islamic armies will march west. They also march east, take over northwest India, which is modern-day Pakistan. This weakens Buddhism severely. The Buddhism had begun in northwest India, and it will essentially disappear from northwest India under Islamic expansion. In general, the Hindus who were higher varnas, people like priests and warriors, will generally not convert to Islam. But because Islam teaches that all Muslims are equal, some of the lower varnas, the people who are kind of looked down upon, like the peasants, they will convert to Islam, right? They get a better deal. If I'm a Hindu and I'm a high Varna person, I don't want to convert to a different religion because I'm kind of the winner in my religion. But if I'm a person on bottom, I'm more likely to want to convert over when I'm low, convert over to a religion that teaches that all members of that religion are equal. What were the characteristics of the Indian Ocean trade? How did Indian culture and religion spread? How did it influence Thailand? So the Indian Ocean trade, so you had the system where there were monsoons, these regular winds. You may remember we talked about those, that they connected Africa and India. Like 6 months of the year, they blew towards Africa. 6 months of the year, they blew towards India. So you could use those to move around very easily. And when you can have reliable winds, that makes trading less risky. When things are less risky, there's more trade. More people are willing to trade when they're not going to get shipwrecked. And the key thing is ships can carry goods more cheaply than on land. So you can carry more stuff and different stuff. So, you can carry silk more cheaply on ships than you can on land, so that will drive down the price of silk. But also you can carry heavy things that would not be profitable to move by land, but it's cheap enough to move them by sea that they become profitable, like wood. So, for example, African wood was shipped to Arabia, and they were able to make money off that. So we had the creation of more mass markets where more people are directly able to take part in trade. There will also be the movement of technology and ideas, especially Islam will spread through trade in Africa and also in Southeast Asia. And one thing we want to recall is that this Indian Ocean trade connects Africa, India, and East Asia. It does not so much, though, connect Europe, right? Europeans are not a part of this trade directly. They have to get stuff overland from Islamic civilization, and they would certainly like to get over to the Indian Ocean trade. And that's what helped leads to the Age of Exploration.